I always thought of myself as the family's safety net, the one who would show up when needed, clean up their messes, fix their problems, and smile while doing it. For years, I carried this weight, convincing myself it was love, that it was just who I was. I was 30, working a demanding job as a project manager at a small design firm in the city, juggling responsibilities and deadlines, yet I always seemed to find time for my family. My weekends, my free nights, my holidays, they were never really mine. They belonged to everyone else, except me. It all hit me one morning when I realized my vacation plans had been ruined. I had booked a small trip to the coast, a long-awaited break after months of overtime and endless projects. I had imagined long walks along the beach, late-night dinners with a book in hand, and mornings with no one depending on me. I was counting down the days. I had even allowed myself to dream a little, to let my mind wander to the idea that maybe, just maybe, I deserved a break. Then the text messages started. My parents had decided to take a luxury cruise. Last-minute deal too good to pass up, they said. My sister and her husband were coming too. The dates perfectly overlapped with my vacation. They didn't ask. They didn't even tell me in advance. I had to cancel my plans. Instead of taking my own trip, I was asked, or rather expected, to stay home and make sure the house is in order before they leave. They wanted me to clean, organize, and oversee everything while they enjoyed sunlit decks, cocktails, and entertainment, as if my life and plans were inconsequential. And in that moment, a realization hit me hard. I had spent my entire life like this, sidelined, overlooked, taken for granted, expected to bend and mold myself for everyone else, while my own needs were invisible. I remember sitting at the kitchen counter, staring at my untouched vacation itinerary, my heart heavy with betrayal. I thought about every birthday where my gift ideas had been ignored, every family dinner where my achievements were dismissed, every time I had put myself last. And now here I was again, my weekend wiped out by a family that didn't even acknowledge my existence. It wasn't anger yet, not entirely. It was the quiet sting of neglect, the kind that settles deep in your chest and makes you question every decision you've ever made. I cleaned that day, of course, because old habits die hard, but inside, I began to plan. I began to wonder if this was the moment I had been waiting for without knowing it, the moment I finally refused to be everyone's go-to person, the one they relied on without giving back in any meaningful way. Over the next few days as my family set off on their cruise, I noticed the small ways their absence changed things. The house felt quiet, peaceful even. I realized I hadn't known what calm was in years. I could hear myself think, truly think, without being interrupted by constant requests, arguments, or complaints. I began reflecting on my life, not just the past week, but decades of it. I remembered how my parents would celebrate my sister's achievements while barely noticing mine. I remembered how they would call me to fix problems that weren't mine to fix, expecting instant solutions, and then disappear into their own worlds. I remembered the times I had smiled through resentment, pretending everything was fine, because I didn't want to be difficult or ungrateful. And yet, as I thought about it, I realized that the only one who had allowed this pattern to continue was me. I had always said yes. I had always prioritized their needs above my own. And now, more than ever, I understood that if I wanted my life to change, I had to change my role in it. It wasn't an easy decision. I knew the backlash would be intense. My mother, especially, thrived on my compliance. She had built her life around the knowledge that I would always be there, ready to smooth over the edges, ready to fix what went wrong. But I couldn't keep living like that, not if I wanted to feel alive, not if I wanted to feel worthy of my own time. Made my choice quietly at first. I stopped answering the constant messages and calls. I let the small emergencies pile up without rushing to solve them. And when my mother texted me to complain about the missed grocery delivery she had relied on me to schedule, I replied calmly, "I'm taking a break. I'll get to it when I can." The message was simple, but it felt like the first real act of self-respect I had taken in years. Of course, the family noticed. They noticed the absence of immediate solutions, the quiet refusal to run to their beck and call. My mother tried to guilt me, her voice sharp over the phone, trying to make me feel like the bad daughter. My sister tried to persuade me, offering small bribes and promises, saying, "Come on, we really need you." But I held firm. For once, I did not flinch. For once, I prioritized myself. The breaking point came during a Sunday dinner. Normally, I would have been in the kitchen, setting the table, preparing dishes, and managing the chaos of conversation. This time, I arrived late, took a seat at the table, and let everything unfold without interference. My parents, confused by my lack of initiative, started snapping at each other, blaming one another for forgotten details and overlooked tasks. My sister complained about missing appointments and delayed plans. And finally, my mother turned to me, her voice tight with frustration. "Why don't you help? You're always the one who fixes everything." I looked at her, and something inside me shifted. I spoke clearly, without hesitation, because I won't anymore. I've spent years being your fix-it person. I've spent decades putting everyone else first, while ignoring myself. I'm not doing it anymore. The room went silent. My words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and undeniable. I could see the shock in their eyes, the disbelief that I would finally refuse to play the role they had always assigned me. My mother tried to argue, tried to guilt me, tried to remind me of all the ways I had helped, but I stayed calm. I repeated, "I love you all, but I have to love myself too. I'm stepping back. I'm taking care of me." After that, I left the group chat. I muted the constant notifications. I stopped prioritizing other people's emergencies over my own life. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The emptiness that followed at first was strange, almost disorienting. I realized I had spent so long defining myself through the needs of others, that I had no idea what it felt like to exist solely for myself. I took time to rediscover my passions. I signed up for a pottery class, something I had always wanted to try. I spent weekends exploring the city, wandering bookstores and coffee shops, taking long walks in parks without a schedule. I learned to cook meals I loved, not meals that anyone else demanded. Slowly, the layers of obligation and guilt peeled away, and I began to enjoy life on my own terms. Meanwhile, I could sense the chaos back at home. My parents struggled without their safety net. The grocery deliveries went wrong, small repairs went undone, and their usual ease of living became a source of stress. My sister started calling less, probably realizing I would no longer respond immediately. The home that had always relied on my care began to show cracks. The moment that truly tested my resolve came months later when I received a call from my father. Their house was facing foreclosure. The bank had grown patient. The family had ignored bills, mismanaged funds, and made poor decisions, all while assuming I would bail them out when needed. He begged me, his voice trembling, asking if I could come and help, if I could intervene to save the house. I listened, calm and steady, though inside I felt a complex mix of emotions. I was not angry, I was not vengeful, I simply knew that I had to maintain the boundaries I had set. "I'm sorry," I said softly, "I can't do that. You have to face the consequences of your actions." For a moment, silence filled the line. Then a shaky voice muttered, "We didn't think, we thought." But I didn't respond. I hung up, and I felt a strange sense of peace. I had done everything I could do to step out of the role that had defined my life. Now, it was time for them to face their own reality. In the weeks that followed, I continued to build my life. I moved into a new apartment with a balcony overlooking the city skyline, decorated exactly as I wanted, free from judgment or expectation. I developed routines that nourished me, morning runs, quiet evenings with music, and dinners with friends who valued me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. Looking back, I realized that the years of being overlooked and taken for granted had shaped me in ways I hadn't understood. They had given me resilience, empathy, and the ability to stand firm when it mattered most. But they had also taught me that love without boundaries can be suffocating, and that self-worth cannot be borrowed from others' approval. Today, I live with intention. I don't answer every call. I don't drop everything to solve problems that aren't mine. I make choices based on what is right for me, and with each passing day, I feel the weight of obligation lift, replaced by a sense of liberation I never thought possible. I am no longer the family's shadow, the fixer, the invisible servant to their whims. I am me, fully, completely, unapologetically me. And in that freedom, I have found a peace that I had been seeking for decades.